Switch to go live. Yeah, I think there's some fun stuff in here. The little Hollywood section is enjoyable. That seems to be something that catches my attention time and time again. So that's in there.
Do you have access to the OpenAI to test it?
So yes, so I ponied up for the there's my Invisalign things, those ugly Invisalign things. Yeah, I do. Here, let me
okay,
put on
wow.
Do Not Disturb. Hey, you gotta work with these things.
Yeah, I got to do it too. I use Meta AI because it's free and it's pretty good. But I got to.
Well, yeah, totally. Well, I mean, I've been not buying ChatGPT also, and at a certain point, I was like, well, I really need to. You know what I mean? But personally, I want to, especially like as I do more AI generated content. I want to be able to like actually work with the pro stuff. So I might have to spend out of pocket in order to do that. But yeah, we can kind of test it out.
Okay, good.
The only challenge, I think, is that when it's responding, I might have to hold it up to the mic. So it might make less sense for me to show this camera.
Right.
Let's see here. Let's see. Can
really
you hear me?
anything.
Respond to me. I don't know.
Loud and clear. I'm here and ready to chat.
You can hardly hear that, right?
Hardly hear it. Yeah.
Huh. It's like, no, I can hear you. It's okay. No, I'm not talking about you, ChatGPT. Okay. Give me 1 second. I have an idea, if you don't mind.
Sure, take your time. I'm here when you're ready.
Shut up.
Okay, ChatGPT. Jeez. Thank you for being so willing to help out.
Happy to help. What's on your mind?
Let's see. That's so funny. It doesn't know when to shut up. Can I just tell you to not respond to me for the next 20 seconds?
Absolutely. I can stay quiet for the next 20 seconds.
Okay,
Just let me know when you're ready.
Thanks, ChatGPT. Let's see here. Okay, ChatGPT. Now, if I asked you to talk, what can you tell me?
I'm back. What would you like to chat about?
Can you hear that?
I heard you loud and clear. What can I help you with?
Is that audio coming through, Jeff?
It's a little bit better.
Yes, it sounds like the audio is coming through just fine.
Actually, yeah, that's much better now.
Is it much better? Okay.
Yeah.
I've got a little lav mic here that just hanging around. I was like, oh, I could just plug that in and put it next to the speaker. I wish it was just a little bit louder on the phone, but... Okay.
That's a clever setup. Sometimes those little tweaks can make a big difference.
God, he's
If only
obnoxious.
there was a volume booster for real life.
Setup. Well, thank you, ChatGPT. Okay, I'm going to put you away for right now, ChatGPT. Okay? That was pretty good.
All right, we should go on so we can get our friends.
Yeah, we can get some maximum fun. Okay, so I've increased the volume. I can't hear the volume increase, so as long
You
as
now
it's
sound
pretty
like
off.
you're not on your mic.
Oh, I wonder if it switched. Oh, interesting. Hold on. Sorry. So 1, 2. Oh, interesting. Why would it do that? Okay. Is that at all better? Hello, testing? No?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. Sit down.
Okay, so if I'm talking into this microphone, it sounds like I'm in this microphone, hopefully?
Yeah, I
Actually,
think so,
you know what it might be doing? It might also be picking up the audio from this microphone at the same time, and so it's going to be a little bit roomier if I do that. Oh, if there's only a way that I could, switch it off during. Sorry about this. I didn't consider this aspect. Oh, if I had a switch for it, that would be great, but I don't. Well, it might not work. What I might just end up doing then is, so I'm going to switch that off because I don't think that's going to work. I mean, you don't really need to see it.
Now you're on the regular mic.
Now I'm on the regular mic. Yeah, I switched the other one off.
Yeah.
So I think.
Well, what if you just hold that up? What if you hold the phone up?
I'm just going to hold it up.
There's nothing to see. It just goes.
Totally. Hey, ChatGPT, can you say a few words for me? We need to do a mic check.
Sure. How about this?
A little
Testing.
closer.
1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
ChatGPT.
Okay. It's so weird how quiet you are, ChatGPT. Why are you so dang quiet?
I wish I could turn up the volume on my end for you.
That works.
Maybe check your
Yeah,
phone's
okay.
media volume.
So I'm going to need to go
Directional
out of the
to it.
bottom.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
That's perfect.
now I
Good.
know. Okay.
All right.
All right. Well, then,
Let's go.
let us kick the jams, as no one says anymore. Okay. Let's see here. So I've got to minimize. Give me 1 second. Set up one last thing here. And then, okay, so I'm going to remove you from the stage. I'm going to pull up. Hi, everybody, by the way. Sorry, we brought you in, and I was just like in the midst of checking things. So apologies. Okay, so we are about to go live. Let's see here. Oh, Jeff, did you have your thing?
I'm doing it now. I actually.
Oh, you're doing it now. Yeah, and apologies, everybody. I got the live event up very late today. I completely forgot that I hadn't created it. I need to get in the habit of creating it like the week before, so it's parked and ready. All right, so are you doing it after I trigger, or?
You just as soon as you're ready.
Oh, okay, so you're waiting for me. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and go. Here we go. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of AI Inside, the show where we take a look at the AI that is layered like a lasagna. I like the lasagna reference. We'll stick with that. I'm Jason Howell, one of your hosts, joined as always by my other co-host, Jeff Jarvis. How you doing, Jeff?
Hey, boss. How are you?
Doing all right. Had a few pre-show kind of setup issues with little old ChatGPT, which we can talk about in a little bit here. But
I've already decided that the ChatGPT guy is annoying. He
Yes.
tries so hard to be nice and so hard.
he
He's like that
wants to be liked.
salesperson who will not let you loose in the store, and you just want to say, "Leave me alone." Oh yes, sir. Whatever you'd like to do, sir. I'm happy to do, sir. It's just a little too subservient. Jeez.
Yeah,
so Jason was trying to
yeah, a
set up
little
the
bit.
sound for a demo he's going to do, and asked it to talk, and it kept on wanting to talk with him and chat with him and say things, and he's annoying.
which is kind of what it's designed to do, but at the same time, it can be a little annoying as well. So yeah, it's like, I think there's a ways to go there to make it still feel even more natural. You know, it's 2 steps forward, 2 steps back seems to be what we're getting out of this voice.
We'll show you.
Yeah, we'll show you that. Before we get started, big thank you to those of you who support us on Patreon. That's patreon.com/AI Inside Show. Want to thank Chris Pictor for supporting us from the beginning, I believe, from the very beginning. We still have so many people who signed up at the very beginning on Patreon that we're getting through. So I'm really trying to hop around. So it's, so if you joined in the last, couple of months, you aren't waiting literal months until you hear your name. So anyways, we'll get to you. But Chris, thank you so much for your support. Everyone else who supports us on Patreon, we couldn't do it without you. Also, if you happen to be watching live right now, there are a lot of you watching live. We do record this show live, and you can, catch it through the TechSploder YouTube channel, and Jeff Jarvis rebroadcasts on his Twitter X account and all sorts of things. But I would encourage you to go to our website, aiinside.show, and subscribe to the podcast. Just in case you missed the live stream, you can still catch the podcast after the fact. 'Cause we are
so
here
we can
each
tell
and every week.
the advertisers we want to get that you subscribe, because
No,
that's what they pay attention to. So that matters.
That's totally true. That is absolutely true. All the different directions matter. Probably the one that matters most, though, is the podcast feed. That's the one where we can, really present it to them and say, hey, see, check it out. We got lots of people. So we appreciate you doing that. Appreciate you being here. Let's start off with OpenAI, as we kind of alluded to, began rolling out its advanced voice model. This is, of course, the model that, had much attention and then much blowback around the fact that it had a voice that sounded eerily similar to Scarlett Johansson. And you won't find that voice in this update, but if you are a Plus or a Team user, you are going to get access to this. Probably right now you already have access to it, but if not immediately, you're going to get it, they say, over the course of the next week. You'll see an in-app notification. I did not see that in-app notification, but when I went to it, let's see here if I can show my screen here real quick. When I went to the app itself, I just found this little button down in the corner, this little kind of speaking button or waveform button. I don't know if you can see that very well, but
Yep,
so I didn't get a notification, but it is appearing there. That's how you essentially kind of trigger that on and play around with it. And they did kind of include a couple of new features, which we can play around with it here in a second, but they revamped the design. They integrated some custom instructions and memory to make more personalized interactions, kind of improved conversational recall. So that's important. Better accent recognition, conversational support for more than 50 languages. That is just, it's super cool to be able to be talking to, one of these voice AIs and then say, all right, now say that in Mandarin or whatever. And it just, boom, jumps right into it. And I don't know, that's kind of a superpower.
This is an ignorant question. So I use Google and I use Meta and I use others. When it comes to ChatGPT, was there an a voice interface at all before?
My understanding, because I'm very new to ChatGPT, the actual app, like I've only just in the last couple of days signed up for it, specifically because it's not like I don't use ChatGPT. I use it through Perplexity, but I figured I should probably know how to, know more about the app itself. So I've installed that. I know that some of the voice interactions were there in some sort of a beta format, but this like conversational thing was beta before. And now it is just rolled out to all users.
No,
so that's really the big change.
That's the difference.
Yeah, similar to what Google is doing with Gemini Live. Now that's rolled out as a free service for all members. Here it's it's still a premium feature, but everybody has access to it now essentially. 5 new voices. So it was I think 4 before. Well, actually, it was 5 to begin with, and then they got rid of Sky, which is the Scarlett Johansson voice. And then now they've added a number of new voices. Although it was really weird when I was setting it up, I could not change the voice. It wouldn't allow me to change the voice. So the one that I had, I was stuck with, and I don't know if it was an app oddity or what was going on.
So you have annoying guys. All you have.
Yes. The voice that we were kind of playing around with in pre-show, and we can test it out in a second. I do also want to point out before we kind of play around with it a little bit, it's missing the video and screen sharing component. And there's no timeline yet on the arrival of that. But if you want it, if you were working on a math problem and you wanted to point that particular feature to the math problem with the camera, that's not a feature that you can actually do yet. So that's coming somewhere down the line. But, I thought I would love to show the overhead shot and show my interaction with it. There really isn't a whole lot to see. The problem is my phone apparently isn't loud enough to penetrate the microphone for you to actually hear it. So
plus all you really see is the pulsating voice recognition.
Yeah, totally. When you
don't learn anything
when you
from
jump
it.
into the mode, that's really just it. So instead I can just go, oh yeah, and you can see there's the kind of like color kind of avatar of the voice that I'm interacting with, who's listening to me right now. Hello, ChatGPT. How are you doing today?
Hey there, I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. How about you?
I'm doing okay, but what I really want to know is, can you sing me a song? Go ahead, sing me a song, ChatGPT.
I can't actually sing or produce any music. Is there anything else I can help you with?
I swear I saw you sing in one of the demos. I don't know why you can't do it now. Do you know when you're going to be able to sing, or can you just do it for me, please?
I get why you'd want it soon, but singing is just not in my repertoire. Even if you heard something like that in a demo, it's not something I can actually do.
Well, that's baloney. I saw you do it before. But anyways, okay,
Can you
fine.
perform Shakespeare?
Can you perform Shakespeare for us, please? And do it in a sad voice. Sound really sad as you're performing Shakespeare.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to give it a go. To be or not to be, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer.
Okay, that's okay, but I want really sad, like weeping kind of sadness, Shakespeare.
I want Hamlet holding the skull
Going for
and
deep
really
sadness.
feel it.
To be or not to be, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer.
Okay, I will give you that. You were able to do the weeping Shakespeare recital pretty well. Is it possible for you to speak like Darth Vader? Is that even a possibility?
I can do specific voice impressions, including Darth Vader, but I can definitely channel some of his vibe in our conversation if you'd like.
Yeah. So okay. Well, let's. What were you saying, Hamlet? Recite something from Hamlet in a voice that is similar to Darth Vader, kind of like what you were just telling me about.
Similar.
An attitude. Yeah.
All right, channeling that vibe. To be or not to be, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Not bad.
I think I'm satisfied. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stop this because that's interesting and everything. But again, I guess the question that I have is that's a neat parlor trick. It's really neat that you can do that.
Yep.
But
I'm
what is
sitting
the
here
reason
thinking,
that I'm going to pull that out?
Right. I'm thinking of what do I want it to do, and I'm having a
Yeah.
problem. I don't know if anybody who's watching on YouTube has any ideas for us on what you want us to have it do. But I don't know. It's a solution looking for a problem.
Yeah. It's a neat technical kind of demonstration, technological demonstration. I can see maybe where it's going, but yeah, I kind of come up empty with like, okay, here's what I'm really going to use this for.
Okay, so
in
let me
the
try
future,
this.
You know,
Because I could ask it to an explanatory question, and when I see it in text, it tends to put things in bullets. So maybe ask it to explain what a large language model is.
Okay, ChatGPT, I have a big question for you. I hope you're listening. I want you to explain for me what a large language model is, and explain it to me like I'm 7 years old.
Imagine a huge library, but instead of books, it's filled with lots of words and sentences from all over the world. A large language model is like a super smart librarian who has read every single thing in that library.
Whether we bought it or
when
not.
you ask it a question or say something to it, it uses what it knows from all those words to come up with a really good answer or continue the conversation with you.
Okay, thank
Do
you
you
very much
think?
for that.
Do you ask it? Do you think?
Yeah.
You're welcome. If you have
Oh, sorry. Okay, so what were you going to say?
Ask it whether he thinks.
Oh, do you think? Oh, okay. I thought this was like a follow-up question.
Oh no. Do you think? No. Does he think? Does it think?
Okay, so ChatGPT, do you think? Like, are you thinking right now? Is that part of your capability? Can you think?
Well, I don't actually think or have feelings like a person does. I process information and generate responses based on patterns and data. It's more like following a complex set of instructions than actual thinking.
Yeah.
So right now,
Okay,
I'm
that's
just here
a
to
good
help
answer.
and respond to you.
Okay. Ozone Nightmare in the chat room asks. This is Ozone Nightmare. He's a good friend of mine. In the world of the internet, he says, "What does reasoning really mean to you? What does reasoning mean to you as ChatGPT?"
To me, reasoning means using patterns and information I've been trained on to provide answers or solve problems. It's about analyzing the context of your question, drawing from vast amounts of data, and then constructing a response that fits logically. It's not true reasoning like humans do.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay, that's gotten
I'm gonna go
boring
ahead and
now.
interrupt you. And then it does give you, by the way, kind of the kind of the script.
Oh, so the transcript is
essentially.
there.
So any of the information that you got in that conversation, you can refer to later. It's not just kind of lost in the ether. So, yeah. So there you go. And it can't,
cool
it can't
parlor
talk
trick.
like Darth Vader, but it can talk.
Actually, that wasn't bad. It did it more than you think.
wasn't bad
I think
at
his
all.
voice kind of changed then.
Uh-huh.
It stayed a little deeper.
Yes, it did. Interesting stuff.
Yeah. That is fun.
So percolate on that and see if maybe over the course of the next little while you encounter a situation where you're like, that would be the perfect tool. I think that's the real challenge that I'm going to have with it, is thinking.
So
about
far,
that tool
I've got to
for a
follow you
specific
and
thing.
sorry, I've got to follow you and subscribe to it because after all, we have the show and I should do it. Eat the dog food. But I find myself using Meta AI more than anything else to go say, give me a word I can't think of. It's an interactive thesaurus. And it's I find it really valuable because I'm writing and I lose a word because I'm old too. That's valuable. Is it worth $20 a month? No. Is it worth going to it and remembering it can do it? Yes. So I now have a habit to do that. It's the first kind of wedge in on actually using this stuff.
Yeah.
That's not
Interesting.
much.
It's not much, but at least my experience has been the more I find those pieces, those opportunities where I'm like, oh, okay, actually it is really good at that. The more it kind of gets me in the habit, and of course they're hoping for this, get into the habit of thinking about it for other solutions as well. It's kind of like it opens the door a little bit, and then it opens the door a little bit more. And now, like we've talked about many times, if I went to my recent history and perplexity, every day has many multiples of queries because I use it more than I use Google. If I'm completely honest, I often go there to kind of brainstorm with. It's a really great brainstorming tool. And I do a lot of that these days, so that's probably part of the reason why. So there we go. I hope you all are playing around with it, and if you have any thoughts on that, contact at aiinside.show. You can send us an email or find us on socials, and let us know what you think. Maybe we'll read it on the show.
So I was just trying to think. Before you leave that for 1 second.
Yeah.
So I started reading a book called The Cult of Creativity. Because as I've mentioned on the show, I'm going to be teaching a course, I hope, in AI and creativity. One of the chapters, and what it argues is that this notion of creativity, the value we put on creativity, is fairly recent. And it does a interesting chart of the usage of the word creativity. But the reason I bring it up right now in this context is it has a chapter that I just started reading on the birth of brainstorming. That brainstorming was not a thing that happened. It's kind of like human-centered design. It was this thing that came out of advertising, and that there was a value in throwing out ideas and having lots of ideas and not dismissing any of them because they have value.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And so we're taking that shtick, it's a shtick, and now putting it on the machine, and it is good because if you want a whole list of ideas, yeah, it can do that. And but brainstorming is something that came from a cultural notion that we didn't really have a century ago, which I just found interesting.
That's fascinating. Yeah, I love thinking about things that we totally take for granted and recognizing that there was a beginning for that thing. And what, like brainstorming, that's so fascinating. It makes sense that it would be a modern thing probably, and but prior to that, so much was probably done based on pure instinct and momentary thought or belief,
or the belief that you'd done research, or you'd done your homework, or you had some kind of scientific method, or there was a logical push here, and it just said, no, be creative. This all comes out of it, but it's all technology based. It comes out of Sputnik to a great extent. Is the fear that the Russians are ahead of us and our science is behind. And so this whole notion of creativity wasn't focused on entertainment and arts and writing and such. It was focused on, do we have the ability to come up with more creative ideas to solve scientific and business problems?
Yeah.
So it's all kind of a little cycle here of how this affected our culture.
That's fascinating.
Anyway,
well,
rabbit hole.
speaking of creativity, Jony Ive, many would argue, is an incredibly creative individual, having driven so much of the creative direction of products for Apple for so many years. And he's been gone now, I think, for 5 years, probably a little bit more than 5 years, but he's been doing his own thing with a design firm that he created called Love From. And we've been hearing, we've definitely talked on this show about the budding bromance between Jony Ive and Sam Altman, as they, have been reportedly putting their minds together on creating an AI-driven hardware device of some sort. And now we have an interview in the New York Times with Jony Ive where he doesn't go into a whole lot of detail, but he definitely does confirm that the two are working to build a product. They've raised money privately, could raise up to $1 billion by the end of the year. They've had
how much?
$1 billion by the end of the year.
They're going to raise $1 billion. Jeez.
Yeah, could raise up to $1 billion by the end of the year. And yeah, again, not really detailing a lot of, really anything about this other than that it's in the works, kind of confirming some of the reports that we've heard. I did say, quote, for 5 years, I haven't talked to anybody about what we're doing with the design firm. I don't think that means that he's been working on this particular project for 5 years. In fact, I'm almost certain of that. But, very secretive, very behind the scenes. And I don't know,
So
at least it confirms the rumor mill.
Sam Altman spoke with Ina Fried from Axios at a UN event. The UN General Assembly is here this week, so there's lots of events going on around that and technology and AI and such. Mm-hmm. So one thing that Altman says is, I don't think you should try to do a better phone. So data point, it ain't going to be a phone. He also said it's a long way away. He said, noting that it took OpenAI more than 4.5 years to ship its first product. And I thought that was fast. So whatever this magical thing is, the problem is they're building it up. Like whenever it comes out, it's going to be Valhalla for us,
Well, you know what it kind of, as I'm kind of thinking about this right now, it kind of gives me Magic Leap vibes, where it's like, it has all of this like pre-release, reading the tea leaves for years and years and years. Oh my goodness, this is going to be the example of the thing that works. And I'm not sure that Magic Leap really delivered on that. It's at a certain point, it just becomes bigger than its ability to kind of deliver on the promises that, or the thoughts that people have about that thing, having had years and years of buildup around it, about how great it's going to be and everything. So I wonder if it would even live up to it. But you've got Jony Ive, who has an incredible track record. You've got Altman, who, arguably one of the most noteworthy or at least known about AI companies right now with OpenAI. So you've got the names. It's just, is that going to be enough? Yeah. Is there actually a product there that people are going to want?
Right.
Yeah.
Are they solving a problem? So Altman told Axios that expect more cool things from this year. So that's pretty much the whole hype. They got about 10 news stories out of saying is nothing. But
right. Oh boy. Yeah. Knows how to play the hype cycle. And this next segment is really kind of perfect for that. You included a segment called Altman's Utopia, which I love. There's a TechCrunch article that focuses on Altman's proclamations that AI will save the world. This was from a recent post by him on his site titled "The Intelligence Age," God mode, as the article puts it. But there's just a number of pull quotes in the TechCrunch article, taken from this post. Many proclamations. I'm curious to know if any of those stood out for you as notable.
Sarah Perez in TechCrunch did a really good job, I think. She said that he shifted from founder mode to God mode, and then wanted to cut through the hype of all this. So I think, did a good job. I'll just give you a few examples. AI will help us solve hard problems. She decreed that to be believable, because look at what it's done with drugs. Look at what it's done with the genome and with proteins. So fine, believable, check. We'll soon be able to work with AI that helps us accomplish much more than we ever could without AI. She said, veering into hype, but probably okay.
Yeah, probably.
Eventually, we can have a personal AI team full of virtual experts in different areas working together to create almost anything we can imagine. Hype. Hype. Our children will have virtual tutors, believable.
Tutors. Oh, yeah. Totally.
We can have shared prosperity to a degree that seems unimaginable today. In the future, everyone's lives can be better than anyone's life is now. Hype.
Okay. That's a lot of promise right there.
Yeah. This may turn out to be the most consequential fact about all of history so far. It is possible that we have super intelligence in a few thousand days. It may take longer, but I'm confident we'll get there. Hype with a capital H, Perez says.
Yeah.
AI is
AGI.
going to get better with scale. She says believable, but that's, I think, the thing that we keep arguing now is bigger necessarily better with this? AI systems are going to get so good that they may help us make better next generation systems and make scientific progress across the board. Hype, she says. The dawn of the intelligence age. Hype. It will not be entirely positive story, but the upside is tremendous. First part believable, second part hype. Again, prosperity. This is their argument. It's almost like a certain presidential candidate talking about tariffs. A defining characteristic of the intelligence age will be massive prosperity. Hype. Many of the jobs we do today would have looked like trifling wastes of time to people a few hundred years ago, but nobody is looking back at the past wishing they were a lamplighter. Hype.
It says, why shade lamplighters?
Yeah, exactly.
Actually sounds like a pretty chill job.
Just walking around every night. Hear ye. Was that that was a different person. So they're getting carried away with themselves here. And that's the thing that's bothering me, Jason. But I love doing this show. I love following this stuff. But I just have this constant nagging of me that it's gonna implode. Not in a market way, but because the hype is just so high and this AGI BS is just so constant from them, I just don't feel like we get to reality. We don't know what intelligence means. We don't know what safety means. And Altman himself, not a technologist, a founder and an investor, just keeps pushing this so much that I think it's injurious to the field. What was your reaction?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it makes sense coming from someone like Altman in the position that he's been and with the history that we know for, most of these comments to be uttered. I think the question that comes up for me is like, when it comes to technology and people creating technology, taking AI out of the equation, are founders, are the people who create that technology usually as high on their own supply as it seems AI founders are? You know what I mean? It's just I mean, I imagine that founders will always look at their product and think the greatest of it. It's their darling, and they anticipate that they're doing what they do because they see a future and they see possibility. But is it different with what we're seeing with AI compared to others? And if it is that a symbol of the actual capability or potential of a technology like AI versus other type of technologies?
There's a constant reflex, because I've been studying some of the history of these technologies in the past. One of my favorite examples, which I use in my book, The Gutenberg Parenthesis, on sale now, is the telegraph. And when the first line was laid across the Atlantic, and the Queen sent a message to the president, it, by the way, took, I think, 24 hours because it kept on breaking, and soon the whole line broke. But the hype of it is going to bring peace to mankind. It's going to universal understanding, blah, 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 blah. And the stories from the New York Times are mind-blowing. People got off work and paraded spontaneously downtown, letting off balloons and bands and cheering and fireworks because a wire was connected. So on the one hand, you think, but meanwhile, in Britain, they made fun of us for going bananas over just a wire, because that's the laconic Brits versus the insane Americans. Sure. And there was also a curmudgeonly reaction a Washington correspondent said, do we really need news faster than 10 days from the mails? What possible use is this? Right. So you saw that same kind of yin yang and the hype. And I was just reading some sermons for my Linotype book. I was just reading a guy's sermon about the Crystal Palace, which was in New York, with all kinds of new inventions like steam-powered presses in the 1850s. And the hype, as you mentioned, Jason, sounds very similar to what Altman was saying. Right, this is going to change mankind, and in a lot of ways, it did.
It did.
It indeed did, but
impact.
not in the ways predicted.
Right. Maybe that's
key.
the difference. It's easy. It's easy to look at it and think of all the possible ways, like the reference of the, on the cusp of the information age or something along those lines. And I read somewhere, I can't remember if it was in the TechCrunch article. God, I wish I had written it down because I'm not going to remember exactly how they put it, but essentially they were saying maybe we're on we're on the cusp of an entirely different age where things collapse because of overuse and over reliance on not as abundant resources or whatever. We just don't see it because we're in the middle of it.
Yes.
That sort of analysis is the only thing you get historically speaking looking backwards, not when you're in the middle of it. When you're in the middle of it, you don't actually know, and yet here comes the proclamation of this is the beginning of a new age. So it doesn't work like that. You only see that contextually speaking looking back.
So I think the TechCrunch analysis of Altman's blog post is a really good framework for discussion going forward, especially even on the show. I think what we try to do here, but to do it more explicitly, is to separate out the hype from the realistic, the hype from the believable.
Sure.
And so we can judge it accordingly. I went to I didn't go to it. I watched an all morning 4-hour conference from academics presenting papers from a new issue of AI and Ethics, an academic journal. And there were some interesting papers in there. One I'll just mention offhand is a computer scientist, an emeritus professor who fell some years ago and is paralyzed from the neck down. And he talked about how he uses AI in his everyday life. And you can imagine the ways it's really important. And his daughter, who helps him, is a PhD candidate, and she's blind. And she talked about how she uses AI in her everyday life. And one of their, and they find it legitimately very valuable and useful to get information and to do things. They find it sometimes frustrating when it doesn't answer the question right, But what bothered them is the hype. What bothered them was acting as if this was going to solve all their problems. So suddenly they were going to be like, air quotes, normal. No, it was going to help in some small ways, and that's useful. And let's see it as that. Another paper at the conference looked at the kind of the bases of the hype, and I'll just do this really quickly. But it saw 3 or 4 key kinds of hype. The first is anthropomorphism, where we think it's going to know us. The second is experts and exaggerated literacy. Everybody thinks they're an expert in AI. The third is FOMO. Every company is saying, "Oh my God, we got to have it. We got to have it." So they build it up and think that they're doing brilliantly if it's in their company. And then fourth is the overuse of the term AI.
Oh yeah.
Now a lot of things that we've been having for years is now suddenly, oh, that's AI. Oh, AI. On the other hand, we kind of ignore some of the things that Google's been doing in AI for a long time. So that's the end of our hype segment here. But I think that there was some really interesting connections here in all this, in how society and media are greeting AI.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. Cool stuff. I'm happy you added that in there because it's a really great opportunity to get kind of gut check and get that perspective. Before the break, just real quick, because I'm not sure there's a whole lot to the story. I'll be honest, I didn't have access to the unpaywalled version of the Wall Street Journal's article about it is Character AI's co-founder Noam Shazir, who Google had basically bought back into the company after he had left a number of years ago to start Character AI. And I believe the article just kind of has an idea or has a source on the amount, which is $2.7 billion is what they paid to bring him back. Is it just him or him back in his company? Right. Team?
So he was co-author of the seminal paper that kicked all of this off.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he quit Google in 2021 and started Character AI. As it began to flounder, Google swooped in, says the Wall Street Journal, and wrote Character AI a check for around $2.7 billion, according to People with Knowledge. The official reason was to license Character AI's technology, but the deal included the other component that Shazir agreed to come back to work at Google again. How would you like to be that valued in life?
No kidding. Right.
And to get that value, in a stock. So it came back with the software, with employees. And I think he's a really important person in this field. But it's almost part of the hype too. It's the financial end of the hype, right? Is that anyone can be that valuable?
That's crazy value.
It really is. That's
crazy. But that value, of acquisition for talent and for companies, man, it just every year it creeps up, and we think we've seen the top of it, and then something big like this happens. It's like, oh, well, that's where we're at now. Paying $2.7 billion to bring back him, which is not to devalue or like his efforts and his contributions to everything. He's obviously
not at all
smart, and he created he supported this burgeoning movement. But boy, that's a lot of money.
So real quickly to the little tidbits from the story. He joined Google in 2000 as one of his first few hundred employees. His first major project was building a system to improve spelling correction. And this is a great Google example from years back. To be Google, I wrote about this in What Would Google Do? The normal reflex for how do you handle spelling is a dictionary. But the googly thing to do was to realize that looking at how everyone misspells everything was the way to understand spelling and the way to fix it. So he went to Eric Schmidt and said, I'm going to solve, he asked him for access to thousands of computer chips. I'm going to solve general intelligence by the weekend, Shazir told Schmidt. The CEO recalled during a 2015 university talk. The early effort failed, but this was the germ in his brain. And so in 2017, he published a paper with 7 other Google researchers called Attention is All You Need. And that was the beginnings of generative AI. So, valuable guy.
Yeah, valuable guy. I'm sure Google's really great, really happy to have him back. We'll see what that amounts to going forward in this new era with Gemini. We're going to take a break, but quickly before we do, I want to touch back on the conversation we had on ChatGPT, because I didn't realize, but the Ozone Nightmare, thank you so much for the super thanks, had said about that story. I appreciate the fact that the software acknowledges the limits of its reasoning. The distinction matters as human reasoning involves more than databases and patterns. So I'm glad it notes those limits. And yeah, it's a good point. I agree. Yes. Good that it doesn't go the opposite direction.
It's not hyping itself.
Exactly. Kind of surprising that they wouldn't, but I guess they have to support the theory that they're doing this smartly and safely for people who are pushing back. And then also want to call out, is it JSal1993? Sorry, the text is really small on my screen, but it says, really enjoying the show. I've been happy with Gemini as my default assistant so far. Been saving me time when researching, although hope it's accurate. Well, yeah, definitely check the accuracy. You always got to do that. But it can be a really wonderful researching tool. I totally agree. I've been using these tools.
I think it's Google's working because when Gemini comes up at the top of search and summarizes some stuff, the links are right there. Mm-hmm. And so you can check it. It gives you a quick summary, and then you have the chance. It's easy to then look and say, let me make sure. And I like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that too. For sure. So thank you for being here. Thank you for the super thanks. And thank you, everyone. We're going to take a quick break. And then when we come back, we're going to talk about quantum computing. We're going to attempt to talk about quantum computing anyways. Yeah. That's coming up. All right. From AI to quantum computing, what could the two together result in? Well, Google quantum AI computer scientists have made apparently a pretty significant breakthrough, developed a new quantum memory system that reduces error rates to a substantial point. And this is important mind you, I am no quantum computing expert here. So I was just, again, doing some reading, doing some research, trying to understand this. Through the research, realized that this is important because so far they've been limited by high error rates. So if you can reduce the error rates, it can be, ultimately become far more powerful than what you get out of a traditional supercomputer. And in this case, the system also proved to get better as it grew in size. So theoretically, that would mean that it's possibly a scalable solution to quantum power. And what does all this have to do with AI? I think the question is, when you've got quantum computing to power quantum artificial intelligence, is that the next generation of AI? And what is that? Like when I think of that, I think, if I don't know exactly how I feel about AGI, but is this the thing that makes that more possible? Whatever AGI happens to be, putting that in, a sea of air quotes. But I don't know. What do you think about this? Quantum.
I'm glad you put
AI.
this in. First, I wondered why you put this in here first, thinking, oh, quantum computing. Is that us? Is that part of our beat? But you're right. It brings the two together. What interested me about this, in my odd way of abstracting things, is that quantum computing, as I understand it, works with approximation, close enough. That it's not a good old computer logic gate, 1 + 1 = 2, and we know that's the answer. So much is going on that it gets near to answers, but it doesn't necessarily know whether that's the only answer.
Sounds familiar.
Sounds like right. Sounds like generative AI.
Totally.
And so, and at first you want to condemn that and say, well, you're computers. You should be able to get the exact right answer all the time. But the human brain's the same way. Right? We get close enough for jazz. We figure it out. Then we test it. And we say, does that make sense? And we go around it.
Our memory is imperfect. We remember moments, from our past, and we recite them as if they happened. Meanwhile, we get little details wrong, but it's okay because human brain is infallible like that.
Yeah. So it's part of the anthropomorphization problem, where the ironic thing is we presume that the computer is going to be better at everything than us, and that's what the whole AGI argument is, right? No. It could be just as flawed as we are, but it's as flawed as we are. And if that's the standard, then it is flawed forever. One of the people at the conference I watched the other day on AI hype said that they'd heard somebody else, I don't know who, I wish I could attribute it, saying that we should stop referring to it as intelligence and start referring to it as super math. That sounds okay too, except that it can't do math. Right?
Right.
So it's really interesting to try to draw back and ask, what do we expect of it? It being AI and quantum computing both. And when is close enough good enough?
Yeah, right. Yeah, what it actually is, that line of good enough, that's a really great question. By the way, the United Nations declared 2025 the International Year of Quantum Science, for whatever it's worth. So maybe we're on the cusp of something.
Yes.
Some are wondering if quantum computing is going to have its ChatGPT moment sometime in the near future.
Well, we ain't going to be having it in our phones.
Yeah, not anytime soon.
No.
Maybe that's what Jony Ive and Sam Altman are working on. Quantum computing for our phones with quantum AI. Be interesting. Maybe quantum AI would be needed to solve CAPTCHAs, or no, not at all, because AI apparently can already solve CAPTCHAs 100% of the time. CAPTCHAs, of course, are the tool online that we all love to hate, because it's used to determine if a bot is on the other side of the screen as opposed to an actual human. Sometimes those challenges can stump even humans and take 20 to 30 seconds to get into a site, depending. Now, according to New Scientist article, a fine-tuned AI model called You Only Look Once, also known as YOLO, learned to pass CAPTCHAs 100% of the time. But it's important to note that does not mean that it could respond correctly 100% of the time. It was able to recognize when it couldn't get it right and then pass to do another one that it could eventually pass through. So it could recognize when it didn't know the answer and pass and get to one that it would, and get through 100% of the time.
So this is a case where I think AI becomes our friend if it makes CAPTCHAs absolutely worthless and they go away.
But then what are we going to use to decipher if there's a robot on the other side of the
That's
screen?
the interesting thing. It's going to be really hard to know real from computerized.
Yeah. Yeah. But more and more difficult. That is true. That's just the reality of where we're at right now. And I should also mention, like, it's kind of full circle. CAPTCHAs have been used to train AI models in the first place. There was where was the article here? A Medium post that is just one example of how, you know, Google has been training its AI with our help using CAPTCHAs. So it's you know, in some ways it's a snake eating its own tail, I guess. So this is really interesting. All right. So a little video games. I know video games aren't your total cup of tea. But I find this fascinating from a, wow, you know, where are things headed kind of perspective. And we've been talking about this the last couple of weeks. And this is a good visual representation of it. Electronic Arts Chief Strategy Officer Mihir Vaida spoke at EA's Investor Day in New York City this week and showed off an illustration, put that in air quotes because that's what they referred to it as, essentially a concept of AI for gameplay and design. And essentially what it shows is using your voice while you're playing a game to dynamically on the fly create the game. And so, you know, the example that they give is like create a multi-level, you know, playing field made out of cardboard boxes, and then create a couple of characters and arm them with these rifles or whatever, and now make it a player versus player, you know, game where we run through the environment, and, you know, or add a rule on the fly. Okay, you can now only kill people if you throw a grenade. You can't kill people with guns, and so it's a demonstration, which is essentially means this is not like real-time footage. It might not even be real. It might have been generated by AI to show off the concept. But it does kind of illustrate this idea that, like, you know, game studios could potentially get to a point to where they're remixing their own assets, their own data libraries, their asset libraries. So 3D assets, code, gameplay, hours, telemetry events, all of that used for training to come up with gameplay environments and gameplay scenarios potentially on the fly. And I don't know at what point that is a possibility. Maybe it already is. Maybe some of these tools are capable of doing that. But I think it's important to really point out, this was not, my understanding is this was not video of a tool that exists, even though it really looks like it is. And, you know, you could easily be kind of fooled into that. There were a lot of skeptics out there when I was researching, you know, the kind of this story and everything. And a lot of people out there that were just trash talking EA left, right, and center. And I don't know if that's fear of, oh, well, there goes imagination, you know, that whole argument, or what. But it's interesting nonetheless. I don't know. I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit prior show, where, because I don't understand gaming well enough or game creators, but I've got to believe that there are lots of kids out there that would love to use tools to make the games that are in their head.
Totally.
B, I wonder what lessons that teaches. What is a game? What is the point of a game? What are the ways to get to goals? What are the ways that stop you from getting to goals? Is there kind of a cynical view of trying to trick people? Is that a skill you learn to deceive them into doing something? I don't know, right? But what are the life skills that you get out of creating a game if the ability to create it collaboratively with the machine were brought to a young person?
Yeah. What it kind of brings up for me is, I'm not a big gamer now, but when I was younger, I was big into gaming. We're talking, old school era, like Nintendo, Sega, back in the 80s and early 90s. Prior to that, the Commodore 64, I was big into gaming on that.
Uncle Jason, the old time games.
Yeah, they're so great. I go back to them every once in a while. They're a lot of fun. But
I remember
anyways,
Pinochle myself.
Okay, now Jeff. It's a very nostalgic thing, the games that we grew up playing. But I remember really getting into certain games that did allow you to use their tools to create your own levels. If we're talking Nintendo, there was a game called Excite Bike, and you had the ability to create levels, and essentially you're using the same tool set that the developers use to create your own levels out of all the pieces that already exist there. And this just kind of seems like, to a certain degree, kind of an extension of that potentially. I think it would teach kids, let's say, who are using it to create something on the fly. It's a very imaginative thing to come up with to come up with an environment and then to immediately see the results of it. It's an interesting
to structure
question.
things, to anticipate someone's behavior, to try to manipulate that behavior. Yeah, it's all very interesting.
I think the question, though, is if you're creating something like this on the fly and you're creating it with your voice, it can look like a game and it can play like a game, but does it have a purpose like a game?
Yes, right.
Is there a purpose there? Is there a destination or a long, beginning to end story arc that has a payoff at the end? And those are things that I think systems like this will be less adept at creating. I'm not saying eventually it might happen, maybe, but I see that as being the real downfall.
Yep, I agree.
So, anyways,
And
I was going to show off
shooting.
Yeah, totally. Exactly, right? Like the mechanics are there, sure, but like, why am I playing? What is the ultimate goal? And then I just thought this was neat because, talking about retro gameplay stuff, Super Mario 64 on the Nintendo 64, we talked about Runway ML as with their new video to video generation capability. So you can take a source, which is this gameplay footage from the Nintendo 64, and then you can run it through Runway ML and turn it into kind of, basically up-res the quality and turn it into all these different kind of ways that the game suddenly is. This is almost shot with like a low quality camcorder and looks like a claymation character. A little bit later, it becomes King Koopa done in yarn. And it just makes me, looking at this makes me think, okay, we are nowhere near this being a real-time operation at all. We're talking probably seconds to minutes per frame. But wow, if we could get to the point to where it would be this easy to reimagine, some of these old games, that would be a really unique way to play through some of this stuff. So I don't know. From an imaginative standpoint, this stuff is very fascinating to me.
Yeah, in a world of giving it commands, it's almost like batch processing. Go do this, but this isn't just one frame or one thing. You're giving it a command to move this character from here to here, and everything in between it'll figure out. And maybe it takes a minute to come back, but it did a tremendous number of functions to get what to you seems to be one command.
One thing, yeah, for sure. And then finally, Hollywood embracing generative AI in 3 parts, it turns out. I found a bunch of stories that really fell into this. Part 1, Andy Serkis, who was Gollum, the star in Lord of the Rings, teased a new project for Imaginarium that features AI characters, quote, working on a narrative-driven story that begins with 2D characters created using voice actors, and then these characters will then come out into the augmented reality world as AI characters authored by artists and directors. And I'm having a hard time visualizing the concept or really understanding kind of what that all means, but I'm sure this isn't the only, person in Hollywood that's considering this.
It makes me fear the ridiculous NFTs and Gary Vaynerchuk. And we made a character, but what does that mean? We made
what does that
the
mean?
lumberman, whatever. So you did. That's not what it's all about. It's just thinking you named something and drew it, or put it in a script. Characters are about interaction with people. So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Secondly, I think this is actually really interesting news. Lionsgate partnering up with Runway ML and Runway AI, and essentially they're generating an AI model that's trained on Lionsgate, their content library, essentially. So they're considering offering custom trained models as templates for individual creators, but essentially they're using, Runway's video generation model is really impressive, and they're all, having all of these great gains. And often when I see some of the stuff that's generated, I think, oh wow, if these tools were somehow integrated into, the tools that CGI artists use already, just, I imagine that it's going to do some really interesting things in Hollywood. And now we're seeing a pretty big partnership. Lionsgate is a very, major film studio.
Yeah.
That is essentially, going in with Runway to kind of supercharge their own content library and essentially, I'm assuming create tools that we'll see in future films. Jumping right into the AI world.
Yeah, I think on the one hand, training with an artist's oeuvre and understanding their structure of what they do and the vision of it, I think is a powerful tool. But I also imagine how it could be misused. You make the porn version of something, and you've let loose potentially let loose of the grammar you created, the vision you created. So I don't know. It's a little sobering.
Yeah, are you talking about the custom trained models for individual creators, that sort of thing?
Yeah.
I mean, I have to imagine, especially with the licensing aspect of this, man, I have to imagine they'd have that tightened down to where you couldn't do like a porn version of Terminator or whatever, wherever that would go. I'm not sure. I don't even know that Terminator is a Lionsgate property, but I would hope that they'd, it's kind of like the music industry and music generation. And, we've heard them talk about wanting not necessarily to shut down the kind of AI impersonation of their artists entirely, like do that for unlicensed uses, but we want to be the ones to bring the tool out that allows you to do that so that our artists, and so that we make the money. And this kind of gives me the same vibes. It's kind of like, we can offer our take on these video generation tools, and we're the ones to benefit because we've curated the content, or we've curated the data set, and we're controlling it in the way that we feel is comfortable.
Yep.
Yeah. And then finally, James Cameron. Yes, Avatar, Terminator. That's probably why I threw out Terminator. Titanic director. He's actually, over the years, throughout the decades, been very pro-tech when it comes to Hollywood technology. Remember, Terminator 2 had that T-1000 that was made out of liquid, and The Abyss was an early one that was really pushing the boundaries of CGI early on, and he was doing things that other people just weren't doing at that time. Now it's very ubiquitous. Now he's joining Stability AI's board of directors. So, he says now the intersection of generative AI and CGI image creation is the next wave. So that's the bet that he's making. And, he's, of course, making all these other Avatar movies. So I do wonder if some of the Avatar movies are going to include some of the fruits of this partnership. And I guarantee you he's exploring it. So it'll be interesting to see how this stuff starts appearing on the screen, and the pushback of it as well.
Cameron's a little, what do I say, full of himself. Not that he doesn't have reason to be, but I can imagine those board meetings are going to be.
Yeah. Fun times.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's definitely full of himself. He's got quite a resume, behind him as well. So I can kind of understand where he's coming from, but yes, indeed. That's what I've heard too. Well, we've reached the end of this episode of AI Inside. Always a lot of fun. Always learn so much about the world of AI as we go through it together. Jeff, I appreciate you, and I appreciate your perspective on all this. Gutenberg.com for people to find what you're up to. Anything else you want to leave people with?
If you Google Jarvis the Web We Weave, the book, I now have the hardback. The book will be out October 8th, and you can pre-order it with the code WEB20 on Hachette's own site.
There we go. That's where you go. HachetteBookGroup.com, or just Google the Web We Weave Jarvis, and you'll find the top link. It takes you right there. What is the code again?
WEB20. Capital
WEB20.
WEB.
Excellent. Go check it out. Wonderful. Thank you, Jeff. Everything you need to know about this show can be found at our site. You can get subscribe links for the podcatcher of your choice. You get video versions of the show. You get live recording details. It can all be found at aiinside.show. If you do love what we're doing here, please leave us a review in Apple Podcasts. That really, really helps. I'd love to get some new, fresh reviews in there since we've been doing this for a while. And, it's always good to kind of get current, up-to-date reviews in there that reflect how things are now versus a couple of months ago, that sort of thing. So go into Apple Podcasts. It would really help us out. And finally, if you really, really love this show, you can support us on Patreon. That's patreon.com/AI Inside Show. You get ad-free versions of the show every week. You get a Discord community. We do regular hangouts. You can get an AI Inside t-shirt by becoming an executive producer. Maybe you're making a statement about the AI that's inside you when you're wearing it. I don't know. But the executive producers of this show include Dr. Do, Jeffrey Maricini, WPVM 103.7 in Asheville, North Carolina, Paul Lang, and our newest executive producer, Ryan Newell. That's amazing. Thank you, Ryan, for your show of support. Great to have all 5 fingers on one hand filled with executive producers. Now we got to start on the other hand. It's never enough. You see how this works? Anyways, thank you so much for your support. We appreciate you all so incredibly for your support of what we're doing with AI Inside. And we look forward to doing another episode next Wednesday. We'll see you then on another episode of AI Inside. Bye, everybody. Take care of yourselves.